Thanks so much, Anderson.
Well, let's dig deeper now with Edward Snowden's father, Lon, also Lon Snowden's attorney, constitutional lawyer, and former Reagan Justice Department official, Bruce Fein. Good to have you both on the program. And again, Lon, what's your reaction to this newly published information from The Guardian based on intelligence your son gave them, that there's a program that essentially allows the NSA to access anything a typical user does on the Internet?
Well, I find it shocking. It's simply a matter of more truth coming forward. I've only been able to scan the new information, but I'm very interested in seeing the two intelligence committees now, specifically Mike Rogers, the chairman in the House, and Dianne Feinstein, what they're going to have to say. Is there going to be more misdirection? You know, we talk about James Clapper, but I think the leadership of the two intelligence committees at this point is quite suspect. And Congressman Amash, I believe, alluded to it when he talked about how people answer questions. Well, much of how you answer questions is framed by what questions are asked. So I would say that Mike Rogers, Dutch Ruppersberger, Peter King, Dianne Feinstein, and some of the ex officio members, to be quite honest, and those leaders who put them there, really need to take a hard look at that leadership. I believe it's deficient. In my prior career, when you have problems with oversight and there's a loss of confidence, you change the leadership. And I believe it's time for that.
I also would volunteer. It shows that sunshine is the best disinfectant. Exactly why Edward Snowden's revelations were so critical to the functioning of democracy. And one of the things that was very apparent when we attended the Senate Judiciary Committee hearing today, conducted by Senator Pat Leahy, that everyone was eager to discuss ways to reform and to curtail the programs that Edward Snowden revealed, but it was like his name was taboo. No one could utter Edward Snowden's name because he showed that they had been derelict in not disclosing and conducting the oversight that he did single-handedly, 29 years old.
You know, Lon, I think a lot of people don't realize you've actually had you talked about your prior career. You had a career in the Coast Guard, as I understand it. Do you believe, when you hear intelligence officials say that these programs, some of the programs that your son revealed, that they stopped dozens, more than 50, or were involved with the prevention of more than 50 terrorist attacks? Do you believe that?
No, I think you have to focus on the language. I believe, you know, anyone in government who's trying to preserve a program or gain support for a program, you're going to use the strongest possible language. And when we originally heard language from, I believe, General Alexander giving testimony as he was questioned again by the House Intelligence Committee, the language they used was, quote, potential terrorist events, end quote. Now, that gets extrapolated in the media to it thwarted 50 terrorist attacks. But I would be very interested in seeing the actual number of prosecutions and more details on that. But the bottom line is, if you have to say 50 potential events, that's not very strong language. But certainly, again, I believe we need a strong intelligence community. And they do good work, and also a strong conventional defense. But it's a matter of priority, and I really believe that if we pull this thread, we're going to find there's a bigger issue here, and the issue is money and power. There are many corporations who benefit from these programs, as well as employees, I should say appointed officials within the intelligence community who bounce back and forth between government and corporate service. And it's a cash cow, to be quite frank. We have other, I believe, issues that politicians are ignoring because there's concern about votes. Again, I'll go back to the southern border. Certain politicians do not want to talk about security there. I would love to hear from some of our, particularly retired, who have no fear of blowback, retired Border Patrol officials talking about just how secure that southern border is.
If I could inject also, Anderson, one other deficiency in that number is it doesn't state that whatever was foiled couldn't have been foiled with measures consistent with the Patriot Act, Section 215, and the Fourth Amendment. Just to say that we foiled something doesn't mean that you had to go to that kind of dragnet surveillance in order to discover what needed to be discovered. In fact, the testimony today was there's only a tiny, tiny fraction out of really billions, if not trillions, of data gathered on Americans that ever is viewed as relevant. Then really, do you need to gather all that information? And they started to ask, well, maybe that's not what we need to do. We need to have a conversation. Of course, none of them said, the reason why you're thinking about this is Edward Snowden.
Well, I want to ask you, Lon, there are a couple things you said recently, I think, to the Washington Post. I just want to try to get some more clarification on. You said that the FBI had asked you to travel to Moscow to see your son a while back. What did they expect you to do or hope you to do? And is that something you would still like to do at some point, go there?
I'm glad you asked that. I can't give you a date. It was some time ago, and they called and they asked if I would be willing to get on a flight and go to Moscow to see my son. And I was at home, and it was a complete surprise. I had no attorney at the time. I'd done nothing wrong, and I was adamant that I would not have an attorney. And I thought about it, and I wanted to say yes.